Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, a race that will either be one of the most exciting and dramatic of the season or one of the dullest. There never seems to be much of a middle ground when it comes to Baku, does there? But last time out F1 was in Monza when Max Verstappen took his third win of the season and McLaren caused a bit of a stir by deploying team orders. But now it is on to the 6.003 kilometre, that is 3.73 mile, 20 corner Baku City Circuit for round 17 of this 24 race season. We really are at the business end of the season now. As usual, there will be 2 DRS zones in use to help drivers get some overtaking done, and the first zone runs between turns 2 and 3, and the second zone runs down the start-finish straight. Now, this track has given us lots of action in the past, and we do tend to see some overtaking despite the fact that it is a street track. But of course, because it is a street circuit, it's not easy for drivers to get side by side. But the best spots to get a move done are, without doubt, on the run to the first corner, aided, of course, by that DRS zone. And we often see drivers go wheel-to-wheel through turn 2 as well before that DRS zone, and again at turn 3, which comes after that DRS zone. But expect most action to happen in the early stages of the lap and at the very end, because it does get very tight and twisty through the middle sector. As you might expect, there's not a huge amount of F1 history here, but the track has hosted 8 races over the years, including the 2016 event, which was named the European Grand Prix, with 7 different drivers taking victory in that time. Sergio Perez, by the way, the only repeat winner, having stood on the top step in 2021 and 2023, and Charles Leclerc has taken pole position at each of the last 4 events in Baku, but is yet to win at the circuit. And thanks to those wins just mentioned for Sergio Perez, as well as the wins for Daniel Ricciardo in 2017 and Oscar Piastri last season, Mexico and Australia are tied for the title of nation with the most wins in Baku, with 2 apiece. So if Piastri was to win on Sunday, Australia would leap to the number 1 spot on that table with a total of 3 wins in Azerbaijan. And 3 just so happens to be the number of dry tyre compounds available across a race weekend. Oh yes, that's right. It's an obscure stat that probably nobody cares about, just to give me a segue into tyre talk time. The compounds available for this weekend are actually a step softer than last season, and they are the hard C4, the medium C5, and the soft C6. That is the softest in the range, of course. Now, the track isn't all that demanding on the tyres when it comes to the stress or surface abrasion with low levels of grip and wear, but track evolution is high and stability under traction is a big deal too. Pirelli also says in its preview that had they bought the same compounds as last season, a one-stop strategy would have been inevitable, and so by bringing softer compounds this year, it opens up the possibility of a multi-stop race, especially considering this year's range suffers much less from graining than in previous seasons. And last year's winning strategy was indeed a one-stopper, with race winner Oscar Piastri starting on the mediums before pitting on lap 15 for a set of hards which he ran to the very end of the race. And the one-stopper was very much the preferred choice, as all but 2 drivers only made 1 trip to the pits. Hopefully, the softer nomination this weekend at the very least will offer up more strategy options, although given how that attempt to open up strategy options over the course of the season has gone so far, it's probably going to be a one-stopper on Sunday. The safety car does like to crop up at the track, and so that could have a big impact on which way teams go with their strategy. 7 of the 8 races featuring at least 1 full or virtual safety car period, and given that stat, the nature of the track and the proximity of the walls, it will be a big surprise if we don't see at least 1 on Sunday. And the weather is something else that could mix things up, but don't expect to see any rain this weekend, as the forecast at time of recording, which is, as always, Wednesday afternoon, is for a warm and dry weekend with a very, very minimal chance of any rain falling. And the latest forecast as of Thursday morning is on screen for you to have a look at right now. And your schedule for this weekend is an earlier one if you are in Europe and a very early one elsewhere, including over in the US. So make sure you set those alarms if you are going to be watching the action live. As ever, FP1 will get the weekend underway at 9:30 a.m. BST, and that will be followed by FP2 later that day at 1 p.m. Saturday's F1 action kicks off with FP3 at 9:30 a.m. with qualifying underway at 1 p.m. And it will be lights out for the race on Sunday at midday, and once again that is in UK time. But it's not just F1 in action this weekend, because Formula 2 will be racing as well, so lots of chaos potentially to look forward to in Baku. Now, before I make my usual round of predictions, you might be interested to hear that the F1 sprint calendar for the 2026 season has been announced, with the venues revealed for the universally popular weekend format. That's sarcasm, by the way, in case it didn't come across. 6 venues are again on the schedule for the sprint weekends, with Shanghai, Miami and Silverstone all returning to the sprint rotation, while there are debuts for Montreal, Zandvoort and Singapore. The number of sprint events has stayed the same for next year, but active discussions are understood to be taking place for 2027 regarding potential format changes and increasing the number of sprint weekends, with considerations including a reverse grid set to be discussed over the coming months, conversations which are set to include the teams, drivers and the FIA. Start times for every 2026 race have also been confirmed, and it is very good news for F1 and Indy fans, as the Canadian Grand Prix has been shifted back by 2 hours, meaning it shouldn't clash with the Indy 500. And Williams has succeeded in having Carlos Sainz's penalty points removed from his licence that were awarded for the collision between the Spaniard and Liam Lawson at Zandvoort. Before the Italian Grand Prix, Williams confirmed its intent to lodge a petition for a right of review into the incident, and following a hearing between Williams, Racing Bulls and the FIA stewards from Zandvoort, the stewards have agreed to rescind the 2 penalty points awarded to Sainz, agreeing with the team's assertion that it was a racing incident. The 10-second time penalty, by the way, imposed upon Sainz has not been removed, with the stewards saying they have no power to remedy that served time penalty by amending the classification. It is also worth a super quick mention that McLaren could officially wrap up the Constructors' Championship this weekend in Baku, and Sam will have a short out tomorrow going over the maths and how they can win it. But let's be honest, whether they confirm it this weekend or not, it is a foregone conclusion. Right then, let's make some predictions, shall we? As always, please do not take these too seriously. They're just a little bit of fun. But if you do disagree with my picks, then you can let me know yours in the comment section down below. And last time, surprise, surprise, not good again. I was wrong on almost everything and only got a point for picking Norris for fastest lap and Piastri making the podium but in the wrong position. So let's just forget that and move on. This week is a tough one, to be honest, because Max Verstappen was superb last time out, and there are parts of Baku that share the high-speed nature of Monza, most notably the final sector. But with the twisty, 90 left, 90 right nature of much of the rest of the track, compromises have got to be made when it comes to setup. That's why, whilst it would be great to see him take the fight to McLaren, surely the Woking team remain the favourites. I mean, even on an off weekend, the car is still capable of picking up excellent results, isn't it? So I wouldn't be surprised if they run away with this one. There is a case to be made for Ferrari and specifically Charles Leclerc. After all, as mentioned earlier, he has been on pole at each of the last 4 races in Baku and so might be a threat on Saturday again. Although based on how things seem to go with Leclerc and pole to win conversion, probably wouldn't be the win, but you never know. And never rule out Mercedes and George Russell either. As we've already seen so many times this season, he can pull off some very strong results seemingly out of nowhere. Plus, it's Baku and anything could happen, so this isn't a foregone conclusion. Either way, I want to go a little bit bolder with my predictions this week whilst also keeping them somewhat realistic. So don't expect me to be screaming Lance Stroll pole to win or anything like that. But let's go with another Charles Leclerc pole position and follow that up with an Oscar Piastri win. A Leclerc P2? That's probably a bit too bold, really. And I probably should say Lando Norris for P3, as it's highly likely both McLarens will be up there in some order, so I will. But I'll caveat that by repeating the point that Russell and Verstappen cannot be ruled out, and I wouldn't be surprised if either or even both of them are up there on Sunday. Quite frankly, I just want a fun, unpredictable weekend. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we don't get any kind of drama, it's probably going to be McLaren versus possibly Ferrari, Mercedes and Max Verstappen. Elsewhere, they've been on good form lately and Baku could be a track that suits them quite nicely. So I'm going to go with Williams as the 5th best finishing team on Sunday and maybe even with double points as well. And when it comes to some separate, let's say, bolder picks, and I'm going to assume a little bit of carnage here, I'm going to say a win for George Russell on Sunday, a shock podium for Fernando Alonso as well, yes please. And do you know what? It's about time he picks him up because we need to see as many drivers as possible scoring, and he's the last one that can do it as a, let's say, full-time driver now, because Jack Doohan doesn't count because he's not on the grid at the moment. I'm going to go for Franco Colapinto for at least 1 point on Sunday. Why not? Let's just hope whether it is absolute chaos or a little bit more straightforward, we still get a good race on Sunday and we've got plenty to talk about afterwards. That is it for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix preview then, but don't forget you can let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comments section down below. Now, I will be back live on Saturday with the qualifying watch-along and again live on Sunday for the race watch-along. But in the meantime, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like, as it really does help the channel and it's never-ending battle with that pesky YouTube algorithm. And consider subscribing too so you don't miss any future videos or streams. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.